It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Panthatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine. Indeed, we're back once again with your weekly recap of all the week's Star Wars news. It's been a day of technical problems for me, so if we lose the stream, I do apologise now. But let's crack on with the show whilst everything's still working, and we'll find out what's coming up on the show right now. So we will be talking about Orla Comic Con. Last week we kind of got the news, broke live on the show that from the Star Wars Jedi panel that there'll be a third game in the series. Also breaking as we went live last week was the fact that the writer's strike has come to a tentative agreement with the Hollywood studios. We'll be discussing the implications of that. Star Wars Eclipse, the game still continues, and we've got some news from that. Marvel Comics are celebrating a decade of Star Wars Rebels, and we'll be checking out the covers. They've got, for that celebration, Star Wars Unlimited Spark of Rebellion products have been revealed. We'll get a first look at those. Something from Lucasfilm in that Gentle Giants, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom statue has been showcased as well. We'll check that one out. We'll be celebrating the Galactic Starcruiser, which has had its final flight. And of course, we'll be talking everything Ahsoka Episode 7. So to discuss that and much, much more from Panthatrax.com is Ross. How are you, Ross?
Brian, I'm fantastic. Great to be with you, and glad that Hu Yang was able to help a little bit with all the technical difficulties there.
Yeah, well, I blame the droids. I never congratulate the droids. But yeah, we're here. Everything seems to be working at the moment. And other than that, first question I have to ask, are you a golf fan?
I'm a golf fan. I don't play a ton. It's fun to get out once in a while. I'll play 9 holes and love it. If you make me play more than that, it's work.
I just have to celebrate the fact that Europe's won the Ryder Cup just whilst we've got someone from America on the show. So yeah,
I will say I will offer congratulations, and I know how much that means. So yeah. That's a good win for y'all.
We'll take it. It's a fine to get the trophy back after losing it last time. But let's crack on with some proper news in the Star Wars news. And first up, news that kind of broke during last week's show, and we kind of discussed it a little bit on last week's show, was the fact that the computer game series Star Wars Jedi is getting a third game in the series. Cameron Monaghan, was it? I'm going to say, I don't know how you say this. Ocala Comic Con, I think it will be pronounced, but someone will.
It is Ocala, and that is actually where my parents have retired to. So my parents live in Ocala.
That's a connection I didn't know, and so it's good that I actually said it right for a change, because normally I butcher names. But yeah, he confirmed that they're working on the third right now, and it was something that I'd speculated a few weeks back that when Stig, the director of the first two games, had left EA, that maybe that was a sign that they weren't going to make a third one in the series. Clearly, I was wrong as usual. And the third one is being worked on just now. We don't have official confirmation from EA, but I think we can take this as pretty much confirmation that it's happening.
Yeah, I love seeing it and having the actor playing Marin, the actor playing Cal Kestis, all of there together. It's exciting, and how everyone has gravitated towards the characters from that series is amazing. So like a new game drop would be wonderful.
Yeah. And we got kind of a little tease, I guess, in Ahsoka, with the writing on the temple on Peridia that references the characters as well from the Jedi series. And for those that spent the time to translate it, which is always kind of a nice little Easter egg, I think, to find that they've included these kind of things. And it's enjoyable, I think, to know that, in the scale of Star Wars, that the Star Wars games aren't forgotten from the sort of main line of canon on TV, film, literature, because I think sort of the gaming side of things can get pushed to the side and forgotten.
Yeah, and again, that's the beautiful part about the more recent Del Rey book, dealing with those characters as well. So they know that they're onto something, and I think Disney is just paying more and more attention to what's going to stick and what can we build out a little bit more, because we have a lot of money that we want to make.
Yeah. Mr. Booker making comment about my shirt from Roosevelt. You've got a Roosevelt shirt on as well. We've got one celebrating the Empire, one celebrating the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, so it is the 12 parsecs.
Yeah, both
and
sides of the
I
show.
love this one.
The other news that broke during last week's show was a tentative agreement between the Writers Guild and the Hollywood Studios. Something that the Writers Guild has described as exceptional. They seem very happy. It's now the votes start tomorrow, which I think takes a couple of weeks before it gets through the various levels, but it seems certain that this agreement's going to get ratified based on just the writers speaking out on social media and across the mainstream media as well. Everyone seems happy with the deal. I crunched some of the numbers, and the studios initially were offering a package that would have been equivalent to 80 to 90 million. The Writers Guild were looking for somewhere in the region of 460 million, and I think they've agreed somewhere around about the 223 million mark. So that's the cost to the studios across the board. But more complicated and nuanced elements to the agreement to do with writing rooms, artificial intelligence, and how that's going to be controlled by the Writers Guild, all part of this bigger package. So how do you feel that at least the writers' element of the strike looks to be over?
I want to thank all the writers, and the actors and everyone involved in it who really had to make sacrifices to see this through. And it was such a great coordinated effort. I felt like the leadership was out there, and they had their messages together, and it was, having that unified front and knowing that content is king at the end of the day. We know that on Fantha Tracks. Every streamer knows it. And if new content isn't being developed, we're about to have a hole somewhere because of this break.
Yep.
And, everyone will be anxious to get things back, but I'm excited for the writers. I'm excited for those that will be involved in this element of it as we wait for the other strike to finish. But I felt like it was overdue. I'm excited how they did it all. And I'm just glad that it's come to a conclusion, but good for them. And I can't wait for everything that's been pent up during their quote unquote non-writing time that now they can put back into the fray.
Yeah. And I think it's important as well because, just from a very simplistic level, we've kind of moved from series that used to run for 22 episodes down to series that run for 8 or 9. So where a writer could be attached to a project and have 8-9 months worth of work, that was kind of reduced down to 3 months almost. And even that was getting squeezed as the studios were trying to get the writers off of projects. And especially the wider writing room, they would maybe retain the lead writer, for example. That it was difficult for people to, make a living at that. You can't. No one can work 3 months of the year, because the way that Hollywood works, it's almost impossible to move from one project to another project in the same year, because productions are going to overlap and just timings of things don't work out. So, you could have a writer attached to, for example, a Star Wars series, but they're only working 3 months of the year and they're doing great stuff, but financially they're losing out across the board.
Yeah, and we're more in that landscape now where it is, we need to take care of investors and not the creators, and that's an issue. So hopefully we can get more, and hopefully this is just one step, and we get to the point where the writers and the creators are the ones that help drive a little bit more of this. But again, it will take a continued coordinated effort and people much smarter than me to put all of that in place.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is that historically, the Writers Guild's always been the guild that the studios have tried to break, because it's almost a linchpin for all the other guilds, and that the basis of the Writers Guild is basically becomes the basis of the agreements with the directors, producers, with the actors. This time they haven't been able to do that on the basis that there's not this natural split between movies and TV anymore, with the introduction of larger budget streaming programs. You've got so many people historically involved with film now working in TV writers transitioning over to film, that they're now invested for each other, and they've been able to unify, and the studios haven't been able to break them, and that's a positive, I think, going forward for that, for the creators of our content.
Yeah, as long as that's that foundation and they keep building off of it, someone from the other side's always going to try and crumble that down and take a little bit more money, take a little bit more power. But it's being aware of what's going on, and I think everyone has been very responsible in their duties here.
Yeah. Some of the comments, Mark Newbold as well, talking about there being a drought ahead, certainly in 2014. I think we're going to find that there's not going to be a lot of new content as a knock-on effect of this. And then we're probably going to have a rush in new content in 2015 and beyond, because they haven't been writing, they haven't been making TV and film for such a large period. And we still don't have an agreement with the actors, although talks are resuming, and it seems positive that can be resolved as well. You're probably still looking into November, December next year before major productions are getting back filming.
Well, is there truth to the Mark Newbold sock puppet Star Wars project that was going to happen on Fantha Tracks TV? That's what I want to know from Mark.
We'll find out about that in the comments, I'm sure, in a moment. But yeah, everything seems positive. The creators seem happy. We haven't really had much comment from the studios themselves. That's going to be interesting to see what the studios take on it, because difficult for them to spin a positive on this one, I think. They've kind of been showing up a little bit, I think it feels like.
Yeah, they're going to get their money, and they're going to get an obscene amount of money. So hopefully they can make that work.
There we go. Mark can confirm or deny nothing. He's too busy darning his socks.
There we are.
Next news item, a bit of a controversial one because of everything going on with the company behind the production of Star Wars Eclipse. There's definitely, I think, a widespread feeling in the fandom that they don't want to support this project. Star Wars Eclipse, it came out with a great trailer, and people were excited. Then I think people learned a little bit more about some of the legal issues and allegations against Quantic Dream and their owner and CEO at that time. They've since been sold, but the CEO is still part of the new company. To put this in sort of perspective, I still want to cover it from a news point of view, and I'll let people decide themselves whether they support purchasing the game. But a project that went quiet for some time following sort of the initial announcement, but they've come back out and described that they're in this game, there's going to be no game over, anyone can die, and you can actually have an action adventure game where all the elements that you would come to expect and want from a Quantic Dream title, because despite the criticism, they were known for making high quality games. They're describing it as where anything can happen, and the story sort of continues if your character dies, which is kind of an interesting take, I think, on gaming. I can't think of another game, and I'll be corrected, I'm sure, where they kind of have that kind of reaction to your sort of protagonist's death.
I think of Dungeons and Dragons, where you're creating your own protagonist, and that's how you're driving, and you run into that tough dungeon master, and yep, you can be dead, and I got to start with someone new now. So that's what I would tie it to. But that trailer was brilliant. Good dark gritty feel to it, that showed a lot of different elements. But it'll be interesting to see, because people don't want to be associated or support bad companies, even if they're doing good work. So if there's bad people that are benefiting from this, it's more and more, I think people are, especially fandoms and customers, are paying more attention to that. So hopefully that continues to be the case. You want great content, but not by some evil tyrant who's doing it.
And it kind of feels that that's kind of going to be the approach that the fandom takes to the game. I think there'll be people will buy it, play it, because they're big Star Wars gaming fans. But I think that maybe commentary and discussion about it will be quite muted. I think it would be fair to say there was something similar happened with the Hogwarts Legacy game. People are finding it difficult in that fandom to support some of the content from that, because they're unhappy with similar kind of comments from the creator of that franchise as well. So I think this is going to be a difficult one. I think I'm going to continue to cover it from a news point of view. Haven't decided whether I'm going to buy it. I am a bit of a gamer, so I have that difficult moment to judge coming up. But I'm probably leaning against not purchasing it purely because it just doesn't feel like that these are the kind of companies that the franchise should be working with. And I think my criticism doesn't come from the fact that these revelations and news that came out after Lucasfilm was involved. It was that this was known information at the time that the project was announced. So that's the difficulty I think I find with it. It's like, why make that choice to work with those particular businesses? So
because a lot of times you expect it not to get out.
Yeah.
Or it's just one of those things, you know what, it probably won't get out.
Yeah.
And then when it does, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a very good point. Let's go something far more positive news. I think it was something we were discussing just before the show went live, and this is Marvel's celebration of Star Wars Rebels. We're getting 8 variants celebrating the decade of Star Wars Rebels. I wouldn't surprise me if we get a couple more to wrap it up to 10. We'll maybe get some exclusives pop up somewhere. But yeah, this is going to come across the whole Star Wars line, starting in January and going all the way through to April. And we can check out these covers as well. We've got an Inquisitor, we've got Ahsoka, Kanan and Zeb, Chopper and Ezra, Hera and Sabine as well. And just to keep me happy, we've got some Empire characters in there as well. We've got Thrawn, and I've completely lost his name in my mind. Starts with a K, I think. do help me out.
Agent Callus,
Agent
who
Callus, there you go. You
actually
can tell I don't watch the animated shows.
who comes over to the good side.
He
So
comes
it's
over. That's why I don't like him. That's why I don't like him.
that's you've just dismissed him
Yeah,
completely. So
I almost got
that's
there.
what happens when you put on your TIE fighter shirt.
Yeah, that's it. That's absolutely right. There we go. Mr. Newbo jumping in there as well, trying to help me as well. Too late, Mark. But yeah, I knew it started with a K. I almost got there. But yeah, the covers look fantastic. Is there one amongst them that particularly jumps out at you? That's one that you would like to pick up and have in your collection?
Well, even if you can see the poster or the print behind me,
Yeah,
there is a big Sabine right there. So that Sabine cover is something that I will be. I'm likely to track down all 8 of these, but Sabine is definitely going to be the one that gets added.
yeah, it's a great cover as well.
Yeah, and getting her spray paint tags on there and everything, like it's extra cool, I think, because of that.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be collector items, I think. I'm sure people will be keen to collect them all. And I think the great thing about it as well is that they're on fairly good comics to pick up. So they're on the main Star Wars line and on the Star Wars Darth Vader line. So they're comics that your local comic book store are going to have readily available in stock. But if you want these variants, do let your store know, because I think they're going to go quick.
Yeah, I think I need to make a couple phone calls pretty early on just to ensure some things are going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is what's coming from Marvel. More product news as well. Star Wars Unlimited Spark of Rebellion, coming from Fantasy Flight Games and Asmodee. Going to be launching next year. They've put out a video, but they've also revealed the look and design of some of their packs. So we've got the $30 pre-release box as well, featuring 6 booster packs, 2 promo cards, quick start rules, damage counters, and a deck building guide and deck box. To go along with that, you've got your 2-player starter kit as well at $35. And you've got booster packs as well, coming in at $5 as well. And of course there'll be uncommons and rares and legendary cards as well, foil cards, the works, for those that collect these kind of things as well, and like to track them down. I'm not into this kind of gaming. Don't know if you are at all, Ross.
I haven't done it much. I'm aware of some people that really do. The nice part about this is it doesn't seem like there's a high barrier to entry.
No.
Like the cost is acceptable, I think, for
Yeah.
what this can be. It obviously, if you keep adding packs, like those $5 add up really quick. But at least the starter packs look like a nice way to get introduced. But that's how they hook you. Like, oh, this is easy. We'll get them to do that. And oh, but now you need to buy a box instead of just 3 packs. And it builds up quite a bit. But it looks like it could be fun. It's cool to see Thrawn on a cover there.
I'm liking the design of it as well, because it's quite like vibrant and fresh, and it's something I always see like at big conventions and Star Wars celebrations, like a huge community around these kind of booths. So it's just one of those things that's kind of passed me by, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if they had anything. Gen Con is the biggest tabletop gaming and card gaming convention, at least in the US. And that's right down the road from me in downtown Indianapolis. So I would imagine that next year at Gen Con, that is probably going to be a massive area to check out. So hopefully I'll get over there and be able to give you all some firsthand coverage.
That'd be fantastic.
Of what's happening.
Keep your eyes on fantatracks.com. There'll be a lot more announcements, I think, from Fantasy Flight Games before these hit shelves as well. Next up on the product front, we have from Gentle Giant Um, arranging their Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom series, we've got Indiana Jones himself, looking magnificent. Nice setting for him there with the temple behind him as well. I made the comment that he looks a little bit like the Russian president on this one. But when you actually get a closer look at the face, it actually looks okay, but it just looked really dodgy in this photo for me. So I was like, no, nobody wants that figure. But yeah, when you actually get in close, other than this photo, it looks pretty nice. And I'm a big Indiana Jones fan, love Indiana Jones. And despite the criticism this year's film took, I didn't think this criticism it got was fair, and I think a lot of people, when it hits streaming services, I think it's due to hit streaming services this month, I think.
We may actually have it already here.
Yeah, I think you can. I think it's available digital to buy, I think, at the moment, and I think it's then due to hit streaming services. I could be wrong. Mr. Newbuild in the chat, I'm sure you're watching, you'll correct me in just a moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of people, when they actually sit down and watch the film, will actually really enjoy it. I just think for whatever reason, the promotion around it just didn't work and it didn't get an audience.
Yeah, and it's interesting how anything for films and promotion for films right now are just tougher, it seems like. They try to do the same thing over and over again. And then you have Barbie that comes in and does just an amazing job that people cared about.
Yeah.
It was like, get involved, don't just come watch it. And people want that experiential.
And in terms of the Barbie movie, that was quite a hard movie to sell until you've seen it or you've seen some footage from it. It's like the whole concept of it, not an easy sell. The idea of an Indiana Jones movie, in theory, easy sell.
Yeah. And we'll get, obviously with that being likely the final one there, that's the last time we'll see that. And can another iconic character like that come along for Lucasfilm, for Disney? Because that's a tough one to top.
Yeah. And we were kind of having a debate in Fanta Tracks, one of our group chats this week about and it is relevant to Ahsoka as well, about recasting of characters. Obviously, we've got the horrible situation with Ray Stevenson having passed away, and the character of Balin being so incredibly popular. It's been so beautifully executed by Ray as a character that I can't actually think of another original character that's come in and not been the central character, but been come in and been so I guess loved, even though he's effectively a baddie in the series, so universally loved by across Star Wars fandom. I think just the way the character's been portrayed, as well as the character's storyline, and it doesn't look like it's going to be completed this series. It looks like his character's going to continue into season 2. The difficulty of the choice of recasting that role. The discussion then goes on to, we had the incident as well in Ahsoka, which we'll speak about later as well, with Princess Leia, and whether we actually need to get to the point where that role's recast so these characters can be used in this timeline. And it becomes really difficult because you look at Indiana Jones, and I can't get away from the fact that Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford, and we've had other actors play him at various stages in his life. And I get that. I can see another actor in the role if you take him to a different age range, but if you place him in the age range that Harrison Ford played the character, I just can't see anyone else taking on the role.
Well, it was tough the last time that obviously Lucasfilm and Disney did that with Alden Ehrenreich, who I thought did fantastic. I loved it. And I love Solo, A Star Wars Story, and hope we get to see another one of those. But it was hard to replace Harrison there too.
Yeah. I think my take when it comes to characters is, you can replace them if you place them in a different timeline, but if you're going to try and recast them and place them in the same timeline, it's a very difficult sell. So for me, you can't take an original trilogy character and replace them in the original trilogy timeline. If you want to take like a young Leia, like we've had in the Obi-Wan series, that worked beautifully. And I think having the sort of CGI Luke Skywalker in the Book of Boba Fett, it worked. But I think you can only do that in sort of limited amounts of time. And so it's a difficult one. There's not a right or a wrong answer. I think it boils down to personal feelings and how it's executed, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, how it was done, this most recent episode of Ahsoka was brilliant. And do you work people in just in hollows so that holovid, so it's, there's going to be a little crackle to it, there's going to be some things that are off about it, but it's tough. And I think Star Wars at least offers enough other opportunities to develop new characters. Seeing Baylan Skoll come in and become a favorite.
Yeah.
You don't have to recycle all the same old ones. You can work them into the story. That doesn't mean they need to be there per se. So I like the idea that Star Wars builds out and expands the universe and the galaxy even further. So bring me more characters. Bring me a Cal Kestis who no one knew however many years ago. And now it's like the Jedi that everyone wants to see in live action, seeing him brought onto the screen. Like I think there's so much of that, and it needs to be developed properly as opposed to just saying, oh, here's a new character, love them. They need to be written well. They need to have some build up and some background. And that's when the fandom really cares and gets invested.
Yeah. I kind of think I agree with you, because I think we've had the luxury, and I don't think many franchises can say this, but we've had the luxury of having all of our original characters have their stories complete. And I know there'll be arguments over how complete and how well executed some of that was. That's fair. But we've kind of had the start, middle, and end for all these characters. So you don't need to fill in the gaps. We know where that character got to, and we maybe have a good idea of the events that brought them there. So you can kind of sidestep them a little bit, introduce new characters, reference them, which is always nice. The various things that they've got going on in the background, but I don't think you necessarily need to recast. And talking not need to recast, was talk about a Lando movie, and Mr. Newbold making a comment, bring Alden back in Lando, and I think that's a great idea.
No, so as soon as they started talking about the Danny Glover project, I was just like, they have to get Alden in there. Like, I got excited watching Oppenheimer and seeing Alden Ehrenreich in there and just being like, oh, there's Solo. This is awesome.
And for what it's worth, I thought he did great in the role. But there you go.
As did I.
And again, it's because you're taking him in a time frame that the original actor couldn't have portrayed him in. And so recasting makes perfect sense. And it worked. And I can see lots of stories featuring Han Solo in that time frame with Alden there. Mr. Newbold agreeing with you, and Oppenheimer was fantastic in that. Mm-hmm. The next news item, Galactic Starcruiser. Great picture there. I've chosen out
Yes.
Mr. Newbold. That's just a normal Sunday night for Mark there, sitting with his cocktail.
That's his living room, right? That's not
I wasn't sure if this was on the Galactic Starcruiser or this was his collection room, Echo Base, as he likes to call it. But yeah, typical Sunday night for Mr. Newbold. But we did a big article on fanattracks.com this week, marking the end of Galactic Starcruiser. Mr. Newbold lucky to have gone this past month, but we had interviews with lots of people and their experiences and thoughts on the Galactic Starcruiser. And as we sort of laid out at the beginning of the article, it launched 1st of March and it's finished at the end of September here. So just a short experience for the hotel. And I think it's always been marred by people not being happy with the price point of it. Because I don't think I've heard a criticism from anyone who's actually been and not enjoyed the experience.
Right.
So I think if you can get beyond the justification of the cost of the experience, I think people have loved what's been executed by the cast and crew there.
Yeah, and kind of like we talked about with the card game, there is a barrier to entry at times, and when you see that, when you're looking at that sticker price, it becomes, do I go to the hotel or do I go to Celebration?
Yeah,
and they're both fantastic, but they're different approaches to each. So I know people that have been to the Starcruiser more than once who are just like, it's my favorite Star Wars thing I've ever done. And I did not make it down there, unfortunately, but that's because I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Anaheim instead. I want to hopefully prepare for Japan and going there. So it's that real life decisions factor in. It's just like, okay, I need to save this way. So I can't do the 3-day hotel stay because I'm going to have this much larger experience traveling around the globe, traveling around the country, doing things like that. That being said, I'm sad that I did not get the opportunity to go. Good friend of ours from the Coffee with Kenobi community, Mary Purdue, she was able to go recently with a bunch of people as well. And then she lives in Orlando now and was just able to hang around Batuu when they had the final voyage, had their time in Batuu, and she got to go hang out with some of the people that were on the final voyage. So that was exciting to see some of the pictures that she was posting. But to the Imagineers and everyone that made it happen, like, kudos to you. Like, that, what an awesome thing. And it is, it's canon now, and it is experiences that people have, and people at some point are going to be like, wow, I can't believe I never got to do that. But enough people have that we get to know those experiences. We get to see Mark's picture holding up his drink, the hotel rooms there with the bunks and just how everything's decorated. It's a magical moment that occurred, and I'm happy so many people did get to go enjoy it.
Yeah. I think when it was originally announced, my take at the time when the pricing was announced was, I'm just not going to do it. It doesn't matter if the money landed in my lap. I wasn't going to pay that kind of money.
Right.
Sheerly out of principle. Just I felt the whole thing was wrong. Star Wars is a family franchise, and so it should be accessible to families. And I think at that kind of price point, you've priced, the vast majority of families out. And I think that's probably true in terms of what you see in terms of pictures, and it is, or it certainly seems like 95% adults that are there and not children that are going to enjoy it. Which I kind of think's wrong. For me, the way I would have done it was price it at your high point of your Disney hotels, so like equivalent to your Polynesian resort per night, and have the experiences that are part of the hotel, the interactive experiences, as payable bolt-ons if you want. So more people can go experience the hotel, walk about, enjoy the meals and entertainment and whatever they put on in the evening. If you want to take part in the various interactive experiences the hotel has during the day, make that a bolt-on pay-on payment. So at least it then becomes, I'm not saying the Polynesian resort's accessible to everyone, but it becomes, at least feels like it becomes more achievable to more people, to have a night stay at the Star Wars Hotel, for example. So actually treat it like a hotel, and the experiences treat that as separate. In the same way you can go to Galaxy's Edge and not do the droid building or not do the lightsaber building. And I think that would have been an easier and fairer way to produce it. I've stayed at the Polynesian Resort for one reason and one reason only, and that was to stay in the room that John Lennon signed his contract to quit the Beatles. And I did that, and that was just because I wanted to experience that little bit of history, and I paid stupid money to stay there. and they spent the rest of the night in one of the cheap hotels at one of the Disney golf courses. But
No, that
but
was called a bus station.
yeah, but yeah, and I just think if they'd done something like that, I think people wouldn't have been as negative initially when they announced the pricing, and I think more people would have then embraced and listened to people's descriptions of what the experiences were like. Because I think the one thing that I take from listening to the people that have got on is how badly promoted it was in terms of how enjoyable the experiences were, and that was really the big selling point and the big element of it for them.
Yeah, that it was promoted so much as a hotel,
Yeah,
almost more than an experience. Even though we all paid enough attention to know it was an incredibly immersive experience, but I don't know that that was the story out of the gate, especially for, I guess, non-diehard fans.
yeah. It's gone. What do they do with it? Do that building still exists right next to Galaxy's Edge? Does it become a classic hotel minus the experiences, so a Star Wars themed hotel at the price kind of points that I've kind of maybe mentioned? Does it get changed into something else? Because I think it's difficult to determine what they do now with that building in space.
Yeah, it's the nice part is they get to make some decisions now,
Yeah,
and hopefully it's still Star Wars-esque of some nature. I mean, tell the story of how the Halcyon crashed,
yeah,
and now there's a different component of it that happens there instead. But um, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I know that all those Imagineers are paying so much attention to everything that they can to say how can we elevate this again. How did they put that on wheels and make it a mobile experience?
yeah,
So it's not, you don't have to travel down to Florida to do it. It's coming to your town for a month.
yeah.
Just like a Broadway play.
And I kind of I've mentioned it before. We've got Secret Cinema in the UK, and they did The Empire Strikes Back. I think 8 years ago, almost to the day, and that was kind of the kickstart. I think the inspiration for what became Galaxy's Edge, for what became the Star Wars Hotel, this interactive Star Wars experience, and it's kind of just starting to transition over to America. It's been bought by an American company, and they're starting to open and do touring in America, and as well as having fixed locations in America, doing all sorts of films, and some of the things that they put on are just incredible. And I actually think that's something that Disney could adopt themselves and have an almost traveling Star Wars interactive experience just like that, going all around America, going all around the world. Because all you need is a warehouse. Literally all you need is a
Right.
warehouse, and you can decorate that, and they have the perfect people in terms of the creators of the props and the costumes and the characters to do something pretty sensational along that lines, because what Secret Cinema did sort of blew my mind. So if you take it to the Imagineers and what you could imagine that they could do with something like that, and it actually got The Empire Strikes back into the top of the cinema charts in the UK when it was on. That was kind of the impact of it, and I think Elliot chiming in there, it was so good. It really was, and I sang the praises of Secret Cinema long before they did Star Wars, and long since after. The only thing I've always said is never do any of their horror ones, because I did 28 Days Later, the zombie one. Yeah,
Okay.
don't do that one. I've never been more scared in my life, but it was just horrific. But yeah, pick the right movies, Dirty Dancing, Back to the Future, all the sort of classic kind of things that you can throw yourself into. Always great fun, and hopefully it becomes a big success in America. And I think that kind of interactive film experience could really blow up.
Yeah, no, and seeing the endorsement in the comments there, hearing you talk about it,
Yeah,
I need to pay more attention and search out when this is happening, and especially when it's happening near me.
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the big news this week, which, as always, is Ahsoka at the moment, airing on Disney Plus. we've reached part 7 of 8, with a really interesting title, I thought, of Dreams and Madness, which I think is probably worth discussing a little bit, because to you, who were the characters that were having the dreams, and who was the characters that were experiencing madness?
Well, and I think, let me find, because I'm going back to part 6 for this in my notes, because that's where Balin first says this is a land of dreams and madness.
Yeah.
But there's a documentary about Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki titled The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness.
Okay.
So with how much storytelling and how often, whether it's Huyang, Ahsoka, Balin, any of them, Shin asking Balin about these fairy tales, about what they learned as younglings at the Jedi Temple. Oh, you know what? People are making fun of it. And then even in this episode, during the beginning, when Hera's on trial and they're trying to court-martial her, the Senator Kaz's dad, Ziono, Senator Ziono, he says, are we supposed to believe this, all these fairy tale type things? So it's really tying all that together. And I know that both George Lucas and Filoni have talked about being influenced by at least one or two of the Studio Ghibli films. So I think it's beautiful to see this. And there's some, like, there weren't many answers in this episode. And it is all pushing off into the finale, I think.
Yeah. To me, the dreams and madness seem to be coming from Balin, and he seems to be the character that's got this big dream. He's gone on this journey. He's crossed into another galaxy. He sort of teamed up with, we're going to call them the baddies. I still think there's some good in them. I don't think Balin's that evil. I think he's almost angry, disappointed with the Jedi and where they allowed themselves to get to. He's now envisioned this different kind of idea of what a Jedi should be, or what he should be, and he's trying to teach Shin that. He's got this big dream about Peridia. He's kind of feel like he's had a calling to go there. But is this dream just an element of madness, and we don't know? And he kind of ends up playing a sort of critical kind of juncture here, and that he kind of choosing to walk away from Shin at one point in the episode as well. So to me, I feel like the episode titles kind of surrounds itself a little bit in Balin's choices and Balin's beliefs of where we are at, and it's kind of interesting. I think that he's become such a focused character, and I'm really interested to see if we see more of him in the finale, or whether they're going to push the reveals of the so-called big bad, or the big reveal of who he's trying to find, or what journey he's trying to take, whether that'll be revealed next week, or whether it's something that's going to, I think, drift into season 2, and I've kind of got a feeling it's going to drift into season 2. But as you said, we kind of kicked off the episode with Hera court-martialed, basically, for her recent actions. And I'm going to call him Admiral Akbar. We didn't get him to speak, so there's no confirmation it was Akbar, but it kind of feels like it is. If you're going to put Admiral Close, you kind of got to assume everyone's going to say it's Akbar. But Mon Mothma sort of leading the court-martial, Kaz's dad being the antagonist a little bit, Hera having to justify her actions, and it not going too great for her. Kaz's dad really had it in for her and really wanted to see her get punished. And we got this unexpected intervention from C-3PO, which I think delighted everyone to see or hear, certainly. I don't know if he did the physical portrayal. I would presume not, but he certainly provided the voice. of Anthony Daniels back in the role of C-3PO, coming to the defence of Hera, and kind of hinted at earlier that he referenced the fact that he was here to represent Princess Leia, and it was Princess Leia that gave Hera permission to do the mission.
Yeah, because she was left out of the vote by Ziono, even though she's the leader of the Defense Council. So this entire episode was a chess match. This is chess within the New Republic and how they're doing things. It's chess with Thrawn looking over his board. It is all of those elements together, and it was so smart. And to hear C-3PO to the side during this critical moment, and the first thing you really hear him say is, "Oh, how rude," was just, oh, this is brilliant how this is put together, introduced. We get to have the say of Leia in there, and it just worked out well. And then for Ziono to say a mere droid and to see Chopper lose his cool and Carson Teva having to calm him down, that's just magic to me, to see 3PO and Chopper together, and then see Carson Teva as the character talking to 3PO, and just what that must have meant to Paul, the actor, and how big of a Star Wars fan he is. I was thrilled to see that. Like, he's talking to 3PO on camera. What a thrill.
Yeah. And I know some people weren't happy with the fact that they were kind of referencing Princess Leia, and it instigated this big debate about whether the original trilogy actors should be recast and how often can they do this little side elements where C-3PO refers to these characters and these characters are off screen. I thought it kind of worked for me. I thought it was kind of a neat and tidy way to have this scene. Although I will admit, I think the whole court-martial thing storyline, I don't think it was necessary. I don't think any of that kind of storyline's kind of working for me particularly. But yeah, I thought it worked, and the fact that you were bringing in C-3PO made it a little bit exciting and thrilling, I think, and distracted from the fact that we were missing Carrie Fisher in the role of Princess Leia.
Yeah, and I think the Claudia Gray's Bloodlines book, that helps describe how busy Leia is in this role in the New Republic. So, to me, it was extra legitimate because of that, and knowing some of the background of what's happening in, this new governing body and the frustration that's bubbling up through everyone. So I thought it was a brilliant way to do it. They executed it perfectly, and what a fun way to start just an action-packed episode.
Yeah. And she's got a little evil little kid running about her feet at the moment as well. In this point in the timeline in Kylo. So you got to keep an eye on him. He's going to be trouble.
Right.
We also got an interesting scene between Hera and Mon Mothma, and I kind of picked up on it in the fact that they spoke about Thrawn and how serious is the threat of Thrawn, and it's like, why would you not speak about this as part of your main panel? Why is the New Republic so frightened to discuss the Imperial remnants? It's almost like they're hiding from this potential threat. It's almost that they've gotten themselves to the point of we're in control and we're in power and everything's okay, and we're just going to be ignorant to the problems that are going on round about us.
Well, yeah, and that, I think, especially Senator Ziono, we see it that way. Like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, we're past all that. We don't need to worry about war, And again, like, thinking of government here, government there. Who do these individuals, who's their best interest going towards? Yeah. And it doesn't seem to be the people all that often. It is very top heavy at this point, and I expect that we'll learn more, or hope to learn more, about who backs Senator Ziono in the things that he does. Is he a puppet at all for someone else in this process. The same way, you know, Morgan Elsbeth was still developing things for Imperial projects, even though this is the New Republic, and everyone's like, "Oh no, that's fine." You know, everyone took the oath. No one would go against the oath.
Yeah, and I think you've got this interesting um, element here, and I've been debating it massively because I obsess over little things, and it should have been on Chandrilla at this point in the timeline. It's been kind of overlooked. I think it's been overlooked purely on the basis let's keep things simple for the more casual viewer.
Right.
But it was sort of established in the Mandalorian that the capital was on Chandrilla at this point in time. We know by the time it gets to the Force Awakens, it's on Hosnian Prime. So you've got the two characters in Mon Mothma, and I forget his name. I could keep going to call him Kaz's dad.
Senator Ziono.
Senator Ziono, yeah, who representing both those planets. And I kind of think when you talk about whether people should be recast, you've got enough ammunition between that two characters as, and I know they're supposed to have a revolving capital, but you've almost got a storyline in itself there of why did the capital move from Mon Mothma's homeworld Chandrilla end up on Ziono's homeworld of Hosnian Prime, and that story and the angst between those two characters could be used very well, I think, to deliver on that storyline. Instead of this sort of complicated concept of a constantly revolving capital, you could use that as a great ammunition for a storyline, a political backdrop to what's happening in the New Republic in this time frame. And I think it would feed really well for those two characters to make it quite a nasty, bitter political little fight. So that is an interesting way to go. But we talk about what can you do when you don't have characters available to you. And the next kind of scene was an interesting one because we saw Ahsoka going through some lightsaber training, and she was watching holograms of her former master, Anakin Skywalker, coaching her, which I thought was a great way to use Hayden in this series when, unless you're doing the World Between Worlds, he's not readily available to interact with the character, but you still want some kind of scene between characters. And you can do it in a way, and they've kind of set it up. There's 20 recordings out there, so we've got 20 possible times you can appear and provide critical, pertinent advice for that particular situation. And they did, I thought, a really ingenious way for him to be interacting with Ahsoka there and really build up the relationship between master and apprentice.
Yeah, and then Hu Yang's response after learning that he's done these 20, and he says, very thoughtful, I never realized. So you're getting this human element. They're humanizing Anakin a little bit more, showing these more intimate places and things that he did. And we even had Ezra watching one of these videos from Anakin during Rebels and saying, who is this guy? He's unbelievable. He's the smartest Jedi I've ever seen. And to see that kind of, they were able to do it here, and you didn't need to see that in Rebels. But if you saw it in Rebels, it became that much more of a, oh, this is awesome. We're getting to see a little bit more of this now.
Yeah. And I think it helps as well. The more you humanize the character of Anakin, the bigger the fact of his downfall becomes, which I think is a great thing to do. So the more you make people love Anakin, the more it makes him harder to believe his downfall and the reasons for his downfall to Darth Vader. And I think it's just a nice dynamic to be able to add in there. The plot moved very quickly from that point on, and Hu Yang and Ahsoka kind of went back up to the front of the craft because the Purgles were coming out of hyperspace and came out of hyperspace straight into a minefield planted by Thrawn, and we got a pretty much exciting entry for Ahsoka into the new galaxy, and shame for the Purgles who quickly disappeared into hyperspace. And we got, which I think is a great shot of Peridia, the hyperspace ring, I'm going to call it, because I still believe we're going to get the Star Destroyer go through the ring and use the ring like a Jedi
Right?
craft to go back to the other galaxy. But
I'm thinking the same exact
yeah,
thing, and that the Eye of Sion.
yeah, that's the word.
Yeah,
It almost looks Death Star-ish the way that they framed it here, which I thought
yeah,
was great. And I love that little things, and Dave Filoni kind of litters this throughout everything he does. Just these little callback kind of little elements, and it's just like so simple and slight, and you could not notice it, and it has no effect. But when you do notice it, it's kind of crazy beautiful. So they get through the minefield, but they've got a decision to make. What do they do? Do they go to the planet's surface? They don't know quite what they're going to encounter. Their goal is to find Sabine. So they head into the Pergol graveyard, if you will, the ring around the planet, and hide whilst they make a decision. They're going to try and see if they can scan and find Sabine. And this is where I kind of thought it kind of slowed down the episode a little, and I wasn't sure what they were trying to achieve at this point. And I think it maybe developed a little bit that they were really just trying to build up Thrawn's intelligence and tactics a little bit, and I'm not sure if it really worked for me. I don't know your thought on that element of it.
yeah. I mean, I don't know that they needed to spend as much time as they did. However, it played out. It ended up working for me, and again, showing that Thrawn, especially as he learns who her master was, and the fact that Thrawn and Anakin had worked together already and met above Batuu, and then solved some challenges on the planet. At that point, again, just getting deeper into that story, wondering how much Timothy Zahn was able to contribute in conversation with Filoni as well, because now Thrawn knows Anakin, Thrawn knows Vader. He was maybe the first person outside of the Emperor to understand that that was one and the same. So being able to see all of that together, he's worried that Ahsoka learned from Anakin, and this isn't just a Jedi who's been in hiding. This is Anakin Skywalker's Jedi.
Yeah,
And what's going to happen? I need to get out of here. Let's remember that priority one is to get out of here with all of your witches goodies that are being put in the ship right now.
yeah, absolutely. I like to think that he's just playing with his iPad because he's just updated to iOS 17. He's got some new features. He's got to try them out. But he does call in Enoch and basically task him with hunting down Ahsoka, whilst they hide out. Meanwhile, on Peridia, we're back with Ezra and Sabine and the Noki. Great scene. I kind of like their vehicles. I kind of like what they've kind of done with them. I did think it was a little bit odd how chilled back and Sabine appeared on the surface, especially
Right.
with the conversation they were having, because she really didn't want to tell Ezra anything really about what's happened, or what's been happening. It was almost like I don't know what it was. I couldn't grasp why she didn't just want to be honest and truthful with him. It was almost like she felt like she had something to hide.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, and I think that goes back to where you talked about the title. I think where Sabine's involved, this is more of the dream side of the dreams and madness. Like, she's living a dream right now. She didn't think this was going to happen. She still thinks Ahsoka's gone. There's just so much that she's been through emotionally,
Yeah.
and reaching this point of just like, holy smokes, is this really happening? Pinch me. Am I dreaming? Pinch me.
Um,
And that's how she's experiencing this moment. And I think knowing that, hey, there's some scary stuff still going on. Like, the bad guy's right around the corner.
and of course, Ezra, he's really keen to get home. And Sabine kind of sort of sidestepping the questions because she's like, I don't know how we're getting home at kind of at this point. Um, and I guess John Scott Glover here in the comment, he's making a very good point. The moment would be over if she told Ezra the truth. There's a big element to that, I think. She's maybe just wanting to enjoy this moment of being back with him before she faces up to the sort of stark reality of the situation they're in. But the situation is stark because Balin's there, and he's got his whole team, including the bandits who are now Team Balin, with him, and they're watching the Noki, and they're going to be attacking very, very soon. We also got the situation developing with Thrawn, where he's called in the Night Sisters for help in identifying quite where Ahsoka is. Always great, I think, to see them. A little bit of magic used to track down Ahsoka. Ahsoka herself using a little bit of magic as well, using her Jedi powers to make sort of like a mental connection with Sabine, and it kind of shocks Sabine a little bit out of the sort of I want to say delusions that she's maybe in. I think that's maybe a harsh word. It shocks her back a little bit to reality.
I'd say she's in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. And the Night Sisters use their magic and they identify where Ahsoka is, which allows Enoch to fire all his missiles towards them, and throwing in a picture of him because he was looking great as well. Which forces Ahsoka basically to head towards the planet. We then sort of moved quite swiftly on to which I thought was one of the best scenes of the episode was Shinhati and Balin having a very stark conversation where basically he cuts her loose and basically tells her, you're on your own now, and basically advises her to go out there, destroy Sabine and Ezra, head back to Thrawn and be one of the leads of the new Empire. His job's done. No more teaching for her. He's got his own journey to go on.
Yeah, and that's his exact words there. Take your place in the coming Empire. Your ambition drives you in one direction. My path lies in another. So I think he's seen this coming for a little while. And John Scott, I love all the comments that I'm seeing down here, and I think we align very much in a similar vein in a lot of this. So thank you for sharing on there. But then even providing, he's like, one parting lesson, Shin: impatience for victory will guarantee defeat, because she is young. She is just ready and eager to dive in. And that's the one thing that you kind of need to learn through experience. But he's like, I'm going to share everything I can. And it's a relative moment to what Anakin shared with Ahsoka through the video as well. Hey, practice these moves, practice these techniques, do it more than I did, because I need you to be safe when I'm not there. So we did get to see, and we know Disney and Lucasfilm have pushed this master and apprentice theme for this series and for this time of content coming out. So I think that's very important to see. And then that leads into, there's a very important part at the very end that I'm sure we're going to touch on as well, that is related to that with Shin.
Yeah. I think as well, there's been a lot of Balin's storyline has been him using elements to get to where he wants to get to. But I don't think that really necessarily counts as his relationship towards Shin. I think there's a genuine master-apprentice relationship there, and I think This isn't just him, right, I no longer need you, I'm going on my own journey. It's very much more of a, I don't want you to take this journey I'm going on, because it may not be as positive for you as it is for me. I don't know if he thinks that this journey he's on is a good thing or a bad thing yet. I think it almost feels like he's compelled to do it, and that he's almost protecting her in some way by setting her free at this point.
Well, and he has used numerous times, and that was a Thrawn book title as well. He's used the greater good.
Yeah.
And what I'm about to do, I want to be part of the greater good. That's what my understanding through the Jedi Order is, that we were the good guys. And then I realized that maybe we weren't. But that doesn't mean the bad guys were right either, or who I was taught were the bad guys. So now it's, how do we wipe? I almost see Balin more like Thanos from Marvel at this point. And that's where I'm wondering if he's trying to get to, let's clear the board and start over. So it's not just this constant fight of those in control wanting to procure more control.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me as well, he encouraged her to go and join the Empire not so long after he's spoken about the cyclical effect of the Jedi and the Sith, the rebellion in the Empire, of them constantly taking power from each other, and him wanting to change that cycle, and this is the path he's on, is to change that cycle, where he actually encourages her to go and find her place within the Empire. That's almost like the first time, in effect, that he kind of picks a side.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and I don't know if it's a case of him thinking that she's maybe not ready to go on her own journey, that she needs to continue almost the protection of a larger group around her.
Yeah, and I think that goes to his bigger question, and he's referenced it numerous times, like, you know what? This is how it's going to work if the fairy tale that I learned when I was younger is true. So I don't know that he has the utmost confidence that it actually can work that way, but he is committed to at least try it, thinking it's going to do better for everyone.
Yeah.
And if he messes up, he wants to make sure that he knows Shin. He's reading her. He knows what she wants, that quest for power, and how often she's brought it up to him in more of the tangible sense. And he's like, yep, I see that you're interested in that. And I'm not going to get in your way of that. I'm going to encourage you and set you up for success as much as I can. So you continue to follow that path. I'm going to find mine, and we'll see if those interconnect.
Yeah. Shin and the bandits immediately go into attack on Ezra, Sabine, and Inoki. Have an element of conflict back and forth. Eventually, they sort of circle up the wagons, in effect, for one of the Nokai craft that breaks down, or is, I guess, shot down in a sense. And they exit their vehicles and they kind of face up to the trouble that's kind of facing them. You've also got Empire getting involved and Ahsoka getting involved as well, as they sort of enter the planet. But Ahsoka kind of goes off on her own little side mission, where she faces up once again with Balin. And I kind of thought this was kind of an odd placement for it. I kind of thought this should have been before Balin and Shin sort of had their conversation and went their separate ways. Because it was almost like Balin's going off on his own journey, but oh no, wait, he's not. He's still sort of involved in this conflict. And it didn't really work for me. Although we got a great element of combat between them, which was always fun to do. Ezra, Sabine had this interesting scene which has caused great discussion, I think, online, where she offers him his lightsaber back and he kind of turns it down, opting instead to fight using the Force. Sabine sort of heads towards using her Mandalorian weapons more than the lightsaber at that point. Whilst the sort of aforementioned Ahsoka and Baylan have their conflict, and Shin gets involved as well. Sabine does use a lightsaber, interestingly, kills someone right through the chest that she survived earlier. And really, the kind of, I guess this is what we're building to, where Ezra didn't want to use a lightsaber because he wanted to use the Force. What was your particular take on him rejecting the lightsaber? Because a lot of people didn't like it, but I kind of thought it made sense a little bit, because he hasn't had a weapon all this time, and we've been told how hostile this planet is, so he's had to rely on his sort of skills in the Force at this point.
Yeah, so it is, whether it's been a decade longer, I'm sure there is the exact time. I always kind of put it around a decade that they've been gone. I think we even get a hint to that again from Anakin at the beginning. Ahsoka, practice these all the time so that you can be prepared to do things. And you need to learn these techniques, refine these techniques, get reps. He hasn't touched one of these forever. So, that may be a reason. It may be, he may be scared to wield it again, John Scott. So like that's the beauty of this. None of us know right now, and maybe we'll learn about it. But I think he's so attuned with this planet right now, and that's where I'm curious if he and Baylan are still going to have something. Baylan's feeling something here about the planet that's calling to him. Ezra has now been here a long time, learning the planet, living off the land, being part of the land. And is there going to be, are the two of them going to have to face off for whatever Baylan's trying to accomplish at this point? So I think there's a lot there, and I think his attunement to where he is and the Force energy and powers that he pulls from Peridia, that's his greatest strength at this time.
Yeah. We go back from that point back to the conflict between Ahsoka and Baylan, but it doesn't last too much longer, because Hu Yang kind of comes in, fires off some rockets, and that allows Ahsoka to sort of depart that fight and sort of enter the main sort of conflict. Again, it kind of comes back to, I thought, did they need that Ahsoka and Baylan moment? And it didn't really work for me after his conversation with Shin, and the fact it didn't have a sort of conclusion to it felt a little bit beyond the need of the episode. But it was a well executed conflict between the two. But at this juncture, just we're heading into the season finale, I guess the appropriate question to ask is, what is calling to Baylan? What do you think? What's he heading towards? What's coming towards him? Jack in the comments suggesting it could be the Bendu.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I had brought up Bendu to some friends a while ago during this, more jokingly, but something that big where it is this force of nature and this larger force element that's that doesn't define itself as Sith or Jedi or anything. It is, the Bendu's just one of the greatest things I think that's ever happened in Star Wars, and interacted with people. And Thrawn has fought Bendu before as well. So that becomes very interesting. And maybe that's part of why Thrawn is like, we got to get out of here. I know what I've been living amongst this whole time. So I think there could be opportunities there, but I'm honestly going in without expectations there. I'm so curious about just like, what are they going to show that this could turn into? And then what book is going to come out of Youngling fairy tales that we can all buy, that we get to read it after the fact and be like, oh yes, this is what he was reading. This is what Hu Yang was telling Ahsoka. All of these different elements. And it's like the tales of Beetle the Bard or whatever
Yeah,
from Harry Potter.
it would be a great in-world book to release. When it would be an ingenious thing to do.
Yeah, so that's what, in my head, that's some of what can happen. But at this point, I've been so happy with the season, and it is not perfect, but I love it as a fan. I'll celebrate it. I will watch them again and again, and I'm excited to see where Dreams and Madness take the final episode to, and then what the title of that's going to be that sets up the next component. There's no way they tie up all the loose threads here.
Yeah. Elliot there with I think a British joke, because I don't think you get Nando's in America, but after all that flying, need a trip to Nando's chicken restaurant. Yeah, I favour a Nando's. Jack making the comment as well that Thrawn had the fear he had when he faced the Bendu as well.
Yeah.
My outlandish idea is it's going to be Joris C'baoth, purely because it's all sort of Thrawn related. I would like him to be there, an exiled Jedi, very powerful. I would like him to have some kind of cloning facility. Controversial, I know. But I think it links it nicely back around to the sequel trilogy and what is going on with Gideon as well in terms of cloning. Is there something that that Joris has got, some cloning technology it's got that can bring them to the next level, which thus allows them to go away from failures like Snoke to an eventual success like Palpatine coming back. Mr. Newbuild as well, Nando Calrissian. There we go. We're going to get all the Nando jokes now. And I think Mark's impressed there with my idea of Joris C'baoth. I just think it would be nice. I don't know. It needs to. It feels it needs to be something significant. The Bendy would be interesting because it's not been seen in live action, and it would be, I think, for people that don't follow the animation, it would be something quite new to them as well. I don't know. I just don't.
And that would make people go watch Rebels. I think if you get a character of that proportion and of that level of mysticism, then it's like, okay, I've been able to put it off this long. Now I really need to go watch this thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the situation I'm in. But I don't know if we're going to get the payoff moment in this series. That's just my one thought. There's a lot of things to tie up, and unless it's going to be the final shot, but the final shot kind of makes me think it should be Thrawn entering the galaxy again. So I don't know, but I'm intrigued to see where we go. Jumping back to where we were in the episode, with the troopers all coming to the scene. Thrawn's at his tactic board, and he does make note that there's one piece missing, which was Balin. Nothing he doesn't miss. Shin and Sabine get into conflict as well, but they're kind of overwhelmed by numbers, Ezra and Sabine, and especially with Shin there. But Hu Yang comes in to help, and it always frustrates me because why are droids programmed with the ability to kill people unless they're assassin droids? It's always a thing that annoys me. It's my petty hate of all droids. And this is always one of the things I always bring up, so I have to bring it up again. But we got, I think, and this is probably something we've all been suspecting, but really confirmation of with Thrawn in the cutaway scene at this point, was that this whole conflict with Ezra, Sabine, it's all been a play for him to buy him more time, because he's busy loading up these casket-type boxes onto his ship. He's got a nice little graphic counting them down as he fills up this Night Sister boxes, which I'm going to presume is the living dead, or it's going to be something along that lines. I think everyone's maybe pointing it towards that. Everything that's going on, Sabine, Ezra, Ahsoka, none of it matters to Thrawn. All that matters to Thrawn is loading this cargo up and getting out of there. And right. And it was great to kind of get that confirmation of that, and I think it also sort of pointed a little bit towards Thrawn's tactical nuances as well. That everything that's going on is just a creation.
Yeah, I love how it's been put together. What is in the boxes? Is what's in the boxes? Is that what's calling to Balin? And does he just not realize that it's all loaded up there? And he's like, oh, the stuff I came here for is now gone.
Yeah.
So there's potential there as well. So it has been set up so that we're able to discuss all these things and say, what if? I'm just ready to see what they put into the story. And I saw something today. I don't know if this is official or if you all have confirmed it at all. That the final episode is 46 minutes long.
I haven't seen that, to be honest.
Of runtime with 49 minutes with the credits. So I don't know if that's legit or not. I saw one thing quickly before I came on here. It was just like, oh, I was hoping this was going to be longer than an hour.
Yeah. It's interesting one. I'm kind of leaning towards
That'd be cool.
The idea that whatever's calling to Balin is the cause of what's in those boxes. So is he the one that's been killing off, whether it's Sith warriors, whether it's Night Sisters, this big bad? Is that why Thrawn has kind of avoided going onto the planet to capture Ezra, or is Ezra just really not that important to him anyway? Is that why Thrawn, they haven't really made a base almost in effect, other than the Night Sisters temple seems to be their one place they're prepared to get involved in. It's interesting. Great idea here from Jack. Imagine a scene where all the Avengers all appeared, but it's Jedi against Sith, and all the Jedi of old appear that are Quinlan Vos, Ahsoka, Sabine, CGI, Luke, and Ben Solo. That would be epic for a film if you're gearing up towards a film.
Yeah, and I will be going to the emergency room with something broken or pulled from like doing a somersault if Quinlan Vos shows up. So
Yeah.
that is there.
But yeah, I think we're going to get a good reveal as to maybe what's in those boxes. I think that might be revealed this episode, in episode 8, but we'll wait and see. We then kind of got a nice wrap up of the episode where Ahsoka's come down, she's helped alleviate the situation a little bit, but in reality the troopers were kind of called back by Thrawn because he's basically had enough time to achieve what he needs. But we get this interesting scene between Shin Hati, who I always call Shinote, and Ahsoka. And Ahsoka effectively offers her the hand of friendship and come with us, which is interesting because I don't think she hasn't really done anything bad. They're on an opposite side of a force, but it's not like they're being evil, they're just in conflict.
Right.
So it's not like she's acting like a Sith, she's acting like a Jedi, she's just on the opposite side from you in this conflict. And she kind of turns her sort of group of rebels down, which I took this shot just because I thought people would like that. It's a nice shot of the rebels together.
It's fun.
She turns them down and she heads off back on her wolf type creature, which I learned this week were actually horses in reality on the set, which I thought was kind of cool. I assumed they were sort of CGI'd kind of, when you see them sitting on these giant blue devices when they're filming. I assumed it was something like that and not horses, so that was kind of cool to find out. She went racing off back on that, presumably to join up with Thrawn, although she didn't go with the troopers, which maybe she doesn't head back to Thrawn. Does she make a choice? Does she follow Balin? And we'll wait and see on that one.
Well, and she wasn't invited back to Thrawn, so
no. Yeah.
The troopers got their message, but she didn't.
I don't think Thrawn's particularly necessarily interested in her.
Not at all.
Not at all, yeah. So I wondered if she goes to meet with Balin and she becomes the death of this series. maybe she becomes the consequence of the big bad that Balin meets.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that's there, but I think tying back to Ahsoka and Balin fighting, the last thing that he said to her before he thought he killed her was, "You know no other way." Like, it's always fighting with you. It's the same with Anakin. That's where you learned it. And she, by distracting him so she could move away, she was different. And then once again, it's different at the end where she tells the other two to stand down, and that's when she says, "I can help you," to Shin, who says no and takes off, and she has the other two just, "Hey, we don't need to worry about her."
yeah,
So we're getting to see this enlightened Ahsoka that wasn't there before she was in with Anakin and having the fights and the flashbacks to the Clone Wars and things like that.
yeah. We got a nice scene with Ezra and Ahsoka embracing as well. And just because we like the Nokia, I like the Nokia. What's the Nokia sound? How can you not end? And I'm taking that as my final screenshot from the episode, because Sabine and Ahsoka don't look too happy, but Ezra's got a friend there. They're both looking away.
Well, I imagine you're cropping that and just having that as the wallpaper on your phone, right?
Yeah. But yeah, interesting. Does Ezra now leave the Nokia? Kind of feels like he's going to. Where does Sabine, Ahsoka, and Ezra go from here? How do they intend to return to the galaxy? Are they going to go back after Thrawn? There's a decision here. It's kind of left kind of open at the end of the episode. They're in kind of a tricky situation, because if they're not on board that Star Destroyer, how are they getting home?
Yep. Well, and something that I have brought up on the weekly co-hosting that I'm getting to do with Dan Zare on Coffee with Kenobi is there's a whole bunch of gold there. And with gold, like even in, that's the markings on the henge there that the Night Sisters have. There's full ships that are just gold. That's one of the most powerful conductors there is. And we have Sabine, who has built amazing things before.
Yeah.
So that's just been in the back of my mind of just like, okay, can this come into play? Because it can't be an accident that there's this much gold all over the place. And is that how they're going to potentially be able to power something so they could get back as well? So again, just another opportunity. It might be the red herring that's put out there.
I kind of don't want it to be a big thing, really, how they get home. I don't want them to be stranded at the end of the series, because I don't want it to be another how we getting from A to B storyline.
Right.
And I just want the interaction between all these characters to continue. So I'm interested in to see what they do. It kind of feels like they're maybe going to have to get themselves on board the Star Destroyer somehow. Great question here from Jack. How does she keep her clothes so white and clean? Yeah, that's magic. It's going to be Night Sister magic. I think that's the only way to answer to that. Elliot suggesting that maybe they use the world between worlds. That would be interesting.
Be cool.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. There has to be something beyond the hyperspace ring that allows people to travel beyond the Purgles as well. You've got this incredible Night Sister structures at each end that are able to chart the path. Can they tap into that and use that somehow? I don't know. If that was the case, why did Thrawn and everybody else not use it? Don't know. Not going to dwell on it too much because I don't want it to become a thing. But we're here at the end of episode 7. What's your prediction for episode 8? Do you have a prediction at this point?
I'm not going in with one, because as soon as I do that, then I'll be disappointed by what shows up. So I have like a 1 in 1,000 chance of being correct, if not much worse odds than that. So I want to see what Filoni was able to come up with and how he puts it out there. I am still disappointed that I haven't seen Sabine spray paint anything yet. So I'm really hoping that that has to factor into something here.
Yeah.
But outside of that, that's the only thing I'll allow myself to be disappointed by in this next episode. I just want to sit back and take it in and hopefully celebrate with all the Fantha trackers, all my other friends back over here as well, and just say, hey, that was awesome, and I can't wait until the next element of this story comes around.
Yeah. If you could class the first 7 episodes to this point, yourself being a Clone Wars and Rebels fan, being invested into these characters, has the live action presentation of them lived up to what you would hoped it would be?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I think the hardest one for me still is Ezra, and that seems to be the one that everyone else is just like, oh, this is perfect. And it makes sense, and I've gotten much more accustomed to it, but we've only had him for 2 episodes. Hera, I think that has come along. No, Vanessa Marshall's always going to be Hera to me, but I think the live action version is strong and has improved every single episode. Sabine's fantastic to me. Zeb we got to see in The Mandalorian, not here yet, but there's been mention of him already, so even that was exciting. But overall, I think they crushed it, and I think it had to be Dave Filoni that was involved in this, and I trust it more because it's him, and how invested and how much it's his life's work on those other animated pieces that gave him this opportunity. So I put a lot of stock into that as well.
Yeah. I'm not going to be back for the next 2 weeks. So everyone that tunes in, not going to get my reaction for a couple of weeks because next week I head to Batu, Galaxy's Edge in Florida. And the following week I'll be at New York Comic Con. So I've got a couple of weeks off. People that want to hear your reaction, Ross, they'll be able to catch you on Coffee with Kenobi.
Yeah, so we record on Wednesday nights, and Thursday morning it is up, at least in the US. So it'll be a little bit later in the day over there. But yeah, it is Dan Zare, the regular host, and then Jen Sobchakchai and I get to join on as co-hosts for each episode, and it's hard to believe that there's only one episode left. And Newbold and I had been messaging about that the other day when I turned in my article reviewing this for Fantha Tracks. It has been a very fast, fun ride, but I'm glad I've been able to share it, with everyone there and everyone who's listening on this side as well.
Yeah. Mr. Newbold as well, making sure that we all remember that the final group review for FanthaTracks.com will be up next week on FanthaTracks.com, so you'll be able to get reactions of everyone on the team there. I'm going to hold off on my reaction until I come back 22nd of October, and I'll share my thoughts on the finale. I think then it's going to be interesting. I'm going to let it settle. Everyone will have a chance to have chewed over everything. We'll maybe have a deep dive in that episode, see what everyone's thinking after a couple of weeks of having that's what they did. And we'll maybe have a little look forward to what may come in season 2. There's not a season 2 actually been confirmed yet, but I think we're all expecting that to happen and take place. I guess a lot will depend on what happens next week. If they kill off Ahsoka next week, or this week coming, there won't be an Ahsoka season 2. It could happen.
Oh, wow.
I'll throw that one out there just as a curveball.
Yeah, there won't be good sleep here on Tuesday night if that's the case.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be the ramifications of that would be very, very interesting. Ross, it's been tremendous having you on the show. It's been great to get your insights into episode 7, and a pleasure to go over the news with you. We'll have you back in the show very, very soon as well. And everyone will be back in 3 weeks' time. But check out FanthaTracks.com for all the coverage every day between then. Social media, there'll be lots of pictures, I imagine, from my trips to Galaxy's Edge and New York Comic Con on there. I'm heading out there with Mr. Newbold and Mr. Booker. and it'll be a lot of fun, I think. And be interesting to see what New York Comic Con's actually like this year. We're just on the tail end of the writer's strike. I don't think they're going to be back before then. So a big chance for product companies to really take the platform there, I think, and interesting to see what kind of content there is. We'll look out for the content from New York Comic Con. Let's see quite what it's going to be like.
And safe travels to you guys. Enjoy the trip. I'm so excited for you going to Batuu, and then for all you guys being up at New York Comic Con. So enjoy, safe travels, and Brian, thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you back here in 3 weeks' time.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at FanthaTracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow FanthaTracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.